It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Well, still no change. Still a massive manhunt is underway in Maine. Yeah, after the mass shooting that left at least 22 people dead and 30 wounded, according to Fox News, citing law enforcement source. We've seen anywhere wounded between 20 and 50. Yeah. Depending on what source you're looking at.
Right.
And they said not all were due to being shot.
Right. And many of the outlets reporting, again, 22 dead. This is what happened in Lewiston, Maine, last night around 7 p.m. local time. 2 shootings reported there in Lewiston with multiple casualties, according to Maine's Department of Public Safety Commissioner. And then they realized again that, and I was watching this as it was unfolding, and the story was breaking because there were 2 different sites. One was a bar and grill, the other one was a bowling alley. And so they said that the shooter showed up at each of these, again, multiple victims. And later this morning at 10:30 Eastern, there's a press conference that is scheduled. Of course, I think the authorities will reach out to the media if between now and then this person of interest is apprehended. They did locate a vehicle that was of interest, and that's several hours ago that they found that vehicle. But again, no progress on finding the person responsible for these shootings, this mass killing last night in Lewiston, Maine. It's not a big town, 37,000 roughly. So it's not a big town, as you can imagine. The hospital system there overwhelmed as the trauma unit had to, of course, go to work on treating all of those who were wounded. And then there's the investigation. But job number one is finding the person responsible for these shootings, again, last night in Lewiston, Maine, which the reports started coming across at about 7 p.m. local time.
While a suspect has not been named, Lewiston Police Department identified 40-year-old Robert Card, a person of interest. According to an internal Maine Information and Analysis Center bulletin that was put out, Card is a firearms instructor who has military experience, and also they stated, I'm trying to still see if this is part of the update. Yes, he was reportedly committed to a mental health facility for 2 weeks this past summer, summer of 23. And said that in another update that I saw, that one of the reasons that he was committed was because he was hearing voices.
Yeah. It was around 11:30 p.m. when Maine Department of Public Safety says they found the vehicle of interest. That was found in Lisbon, about 8 miles from Lewiston. But the person of interest still remains at large. And the officials there in Lisbon say that all of their town offices are going to be closed until this danger is behind them and this person is found. So they're asking everyone in that area to shelter in place.
And the one thing is, it was 2 separate locations where he is consider the person of interest, and it was one was a restaurant, bar, and grill, the other a bowling alley, and they look to be a few miles apart by the map. I don't have a mileage indicator here, so I can't tell exactly, but you're talking about, definitely looks like 15, 20 blocks at the minimum, city blocks away from each other in a town of 37,000. So, I guess what hasn't been reported is, was it just random at those places, or were they targeted specifically?
Yeah, that would be the question. both of them seem to be recreational destinations. I don't know if that plays into it or if it was just random. But we will bring you any updates between now and the end of our show, if there are any updates, and hopefully the authorities can find the person responsible here and apprehend him. There's, again, a press conference from the police department there in Lewiston, Maine, scheduled for 10:30 Eastern. And I think the asterisk there would be, unless they apprehend the individual that is the person of interest, then it would be earlier. But if not before then, 10:30 will be the next time we hear from Lewiston PD. And the still shots that have been circulated are just scary. And authorities are saying this person of interest has military experience. And as he's walking through there's a couple of photos of him walking through the door at this bowling alley, one of the two locations. And you hear the stories from witnesses of course, children being around. But this is, chaotic and people are frightened beyond belief and scattering, having to run. And then the authorities are having to, as they're called to these locations, having to determine, as is always the case, as people come out of these buildings, they're searched. They have to be, they have to be patted down in some cases, according to some of the witnesses there. But I can't imagine being in that situation. And our thoughts and prayers are with all the families who suffered a loss and with those in those communities dealing with this.
Well, we've got a new Speaker of the House, Representative Mike Johnson. Yesterday, he delivered his first official address. Here's some moments of his first address to Congress.
Thank you all. First, a few words of gratitude. I want to thank Leader Jeffries. I do look forward to working with you on behalf of the American people. I know we see things from very different points of view, but I know that in your heart you love and care about this country and you want to do what's right. And so we're going to find common ground there, all right?
I would ask the question, could you please tell me where the common ground is right now between Democrats and Republicans? That would be the question of substance you would ask. Could you give me an idea of where that common ground is?
I hear those words, common ground. Mm-hmm. I've never seen an actual map of what that ground looks like.
Well, I think the interesting thing is, let's play this audio cut.
I will say this. What led to Mike Johnson becoming Speaker did require the work of a handful of Republicans and all the Democrats. It was a bipartisan effort.
It was a bipartisan
led by
effort.
Matt Gaetz.
Yes.
I'll say that. But there's your common ground.
But common ground on the issues, for example, let's listen to this comment or this part of his speech, because this seems to be that what he said here would probably get approval from 80% of Americans. All right, here it is.
All right.
We have a catastrophe at our southern border. The Senate and the White House can no longer ignore the problem. From Texas to New York, wave after wave of illegal migrants are stressing our communities to their breaking points. We know that our streets are being flooded with fentanyl, and all of our communities, children, and even adults are dying from it. The status quo is unacceptable. Inaction is unacceptable, and we must come together and address the broken border. We have to do it.
So you would think there's bipartisan cheering for that, because you could take that either way. You could take that if you're a Democrat. You could say, well, okay, yes, we need to end this humanitarian and national security crisis at the border by having comprehensive immigration reform, whatever the hell that means.
Right.
If you're a Democrat, or we need to secure the border first if you're a Republican. But the Democrats did not stand for that.
No.
Probably going to be tough to find some common ground there. I did like on CNN And if you listen to the first hour of the show in our podcast, or somewhere in the first part of the show, we did play the CNN panel together. And one of the comments that was made was, he's really hard to demonize because of the manner in which he speaks.
Right.
He's really conservative, but he's really tough. And you heard the first thing that he did was thanks Speaker Jeffries.
Well, it could have been. And if the GOP doesn't get it together, it might be in January of 25.
House Minority Leader Jeffries, he thanked him. One of the first things that he did, and said we can, we find our common ground and all that. Blah 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 blah, yada yada yada. Seinfeld episode there.
Yeah, right.
But said very tough to demonize. Matt Gaetz came out and said, "See, it was worth doing what we did because we got a more conservative speaker." Well, when you actually look at what is going to change, and you can make the case, yes, that Mike Johnson is more conservative than a McCarthy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We had played that when McCarthy said a couple weeks ago, he had said something about that we need to be concerned about this and not climate change, even though climate change is important.
Yeah.
And I remember I said I said to you, do you have to be if you're a California Republican, do you have to say something like that? Remember?
I'm guessing.
Yes. And
in Bakersfield, they're kind of surrounded.
Oh, wow. But as we've said, legislatively speaking, what will change? Because what Matt Gaetz wanted was the government closed down in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
If they didn't get what they got.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now one of the first things that he was talking about, and the Wall Street Journal pointed this out. Well, the 8 led by Matt Gaetz are giving him leeway they never gave McCarthy, which is, he wants to have a temporary spending bill go through next year, maybe through next June.
Right.
And they didn't want McCarthy to even have a plan that came from the House, the House Freedom Caucus, to go for 3 or 4 weeks.
3 or 4 weeks, right. Well, look, I would love for, this whole thing to pan out in favor of conservative policy being the case and being the agenda, and also effectively getting through in the House. I would love to be wrong about saying this changes nothing because the makeup in the House isn't different. I think I'm right about that. But if I'm proven wrong in the long run, great. That means America wins. But you and I have been doing this for a long time. And it doesn't matter who the speaker is. I'm not against Jim Jordan. I'm not against Matt Gaetz. I'm not against Mike Johnson. I wasn't against Kevin McCarthy. I have my disagreements on the issues and on things that some in the GOP float. And those are things that we can say, whoa. That's a liberal approach to this or that. And we can say, no, we disagree with that. We can have disagreements within the party, even the party that we support, even the people that I actually have already voted for. But I don't have any expectations that it will change anything. Now, the good news is we can move on.
Yeah.
And we should have.
And talk issues.
Because and I hope, by the way, if that's the one thing that comes out of this, to the point that Mike Johnson can get the points across and in the media, and it leads to a greater victory of a greater margin for the GOP in the House, and it helps to lead to a victory in the Senate, and it helps to lead to a victory in the White House with the GOP getting the Senate and the White House, then that's a win. And I'll give it the thumbs up then. But it doesn't change the makeup, and in order to change the makeup, you have to change hearts and minds. And maybe Mike Johnson can do that.
Well, we always view this as a strategy thing, not a great difference in our opinion on the issues, whether it's Gaetz or whatever. Gaetz and the other 8 wanted the government shut down now.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't like the 3-week or 4-week deal, or whatever it was, 4 or 5 week deal.
Right.
They didn't like that.
Right.
You know, they didn't like the continuing resolution. And then when Jim Jordan, one of the things he was selling was not just a continuing resolution, but he was also talking about trying to get blue state Republicans to vote for him by doubling the SALT deductions, which is completely against what Gates or anybody wanted.
Right.
And so he was actually going further than McCarthy in order to get the speaker than they claim McCarthy was going. So that made no sense. And then Mike Johnson comes up, and the first thing he talks about is a continuing resolution all the way through next June.
Yeah.
And Gates is fine with it.
Right.
And so what was this all about is the question.
That's the question.
If Gates is happy now and everybody's focused on winning in 2024, the big picture, well, then I'm fine with it.
If they can, again, operate as a group, as a party, and they can focus on 2024, yeah, that's a win.
Right. But I don't see what Gates won.
I don't see it other than the personality conflict.
Yeah.
I mean, because what I can't do is go back and say whether or not, let's say there's a greater victory in 2024. Well, you can't say that wouldn't have happened under McCarthy.
Yeah, now Gates
there's no way to prove that it wouldn't have because McCarthy's no longer speaker.
Gates said yesterday, we win because we got a more conservative speaker. Well, that doesn't change anything.
Right.
It doesn't change your negotiations with, in fact, if you have a more conservative speaker, then according to what you were saying a couple of weeks ago, you should shut down the government now.
Right.
And that's not going to happen. The opposite's going to happen. You're going to allow it to go out, all the way till next June. So that never made sense because you never said, he wasn't saying 3 weeks ago, I want a more conservative speaker on the issues. He wanted somebody who would shut down the government.
Right.
That's what he wanted.
Yeah, he wanted real cuts. He wanted
now,
not continuing resolutions, and nothing's going to change there.
To the point where he didn't vote for the House Freedom Caucus, the most conservative part of the House, of the GOP House members, who were the ones that, put out a continuing resolution. He wasn't for that.
Right.
He didn't want that either.
Right.
So it wasn't about even the specific issues of what you could get now. It was the length of what he wanted was a budget now that went way out.
Right.
Or closed down the government. Well, now he doesn't hold that opinion.
Right.
From what I know, unless he says he does today, but he didn't say that yesterday.
No. Nope.
866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
Food insecurity in the U.S. as of 2022 is up from the previous year. Among the findings in USDA's latest edition of the Household Food Security in the U.S. report released Wednesday.
Food insecurity increased from 10.2% in 2021 to 12.8% in 2022.
USDA research economist Matthew Rabbit says that reflects the number of households that had difficulty at some point during the year providing enough food for members of the household due to lack of resources. In addition,
in 2022, 5.1% of U.S. households had very low food security, and this was statistically significantly higher than the 3.8% that was estimated in 2021 and the 3.9% estimated for 2020.
8.8% of children were food insecure at times in 2022, up from 6.2% the prior year. Rabbit adds the majority of household demographic groups report year-over-year increases in food insecurity. I'm Ron Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, now that we have a speaker, really some interesting things coming in on the Biden scandals.
On your smart speaker, say, play Red Eye Radio. And, if you're really nice, she might. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, so we know, because it hit last week, the $200,000 supposed loan repayment from James Biden to Joe Biden.
Right.
And when that happened, there were a couple of days of silence. We were wondering, how is the White House going to respond? Well, James Biden responded and said, I was simply paying back. And by the way, he had gotten this, the healthcare company. I can't remember the name of it here at the moment. I don't have it here in front of me. Was it not AmeriCorps? Whatever it was called. The healthcare company that he promised he would get to this healthcare company that James Biden, and this is in the bankruptcy filings of this company, that they gave a total of $600,000 to James Biden because Biden told him he could use Joe Biden to get them funding from the Middle East to save them.
Yeah.
And the day that the company transferred $200,000 to James Biden, he transferred the money to Joe Biden and called it a loan repayment.
Right.
And so James Biden came out and said, no, I was just repaying the loan. And, implying that he had other money, that he didn't use that money. He had his own money. James Comer came back and said, we've got his personal bank accounts. He didn't have the money to pay his brother.
AmeriCorps is the company.
AmeriCorps, yeah. And so the money came directly from AmeriCorps into James Biden account and then paid to Joe Biden for a loan. Then you had Representative Dan Goldman, who has made horrible mistakes in defending Joe Biden. I think did another one when he came out and he said, well, the Republicans and Comer, they're going after Joe Biden, who's just trying to take care of his family. In this case, Joe Biden loaned money to his brother, and his brother was just paying him back. And so they're going after a man who loves his family.
Yeah.
And Comer said, it doesn't matter whether Joe Biden ever loaned James money or not. In fact, if he did loan him money, that makes it worse because at that point, you have intent for why James Biden told AmeriCorps he could get him financing by using his brother, so they'd give him money to repay his brother back, who was getting upset that he had loaned money to his brother who wasn't paying him back.
Yeah, and you're making it worse.
Yeah, Goldman's actually making it worse again. And then they sort of dropped that narrative completely, and then there's been nothing the last couple of days on it. Well, then this came out. The FBI maintained, this is really incredible when you think about this now. This I look at the $200,000, which again shows money was transferred.
Yeah, sure.
Then this story came out. The FBI maintained more than 40 confidential human sources on various criminal matters relating to the Biden family, including Joe Biden, dating back to his time as vice president, according to information obtained by Senator Chuck Grassley. The confidential human sources provided criminal information to the FBI relating to Joe Biden, James Biden, and Hunter Biden. Those confidential human sources were managed by multiple FBI field offices across the nation, including the FBI's Seattle office. But Grassley learned that an FBI task force within the Washington field office sought to, and in some cases successfully, shut down reporting and information from those sources by falsely discrediting the information as foreign disinformation. That effort caused investigative activity to cease. However, despite those efforts by the FBI task force, Grassley said, in at least one instance, a confidential source and its information has been vetted by multiple U.S. Attorney's Office, which found no hits to known sources of Russian disinformation. The revelations were laid out in a letter Grassley wrote to Attorney General Merrick Garland and FBI Director Christopher Wray late Tuesday night. The letter was exclusively obtained by Fox News Digital. Quote from the actual letter, based on the information provided to my office over a period of years by multiple credible whistleblowers, there appears to be an effort within the Justice Department and the FBI to shut down investigative activity relating to the Biden family, Grassley wrote to Garland and Wray. Such decisions point to significant political bias infecting the decision-making of not only the Attorney General and FBI Director, but also line agents and prosecutors. He added, our republic cannot survive such political infection, and you have an obligation to the country to clear the air on this. So now that the focus, there's still going to be focus on Israel, but the focus on Israel doesn't help the administration at all. The only thing that was helping the administration is the chaos going in the Republican Party trying to find a speaker, but that's gone now. Yeah. And by the way, something happened, and I said this last night when you were gone, because when I saw the video of Mike Johnson and everybody in Congress surrounding him, and I played the quick, it was only like a minute and a half speech that he made. Yeah. And I said after the speech on air, I said, well, he's going to be the speaker. He's got the vote. That wasn't I'm the nominee. That was a victory speech. Yeah. Something changed, and Representative Lawler said no. After I can't think of his name.
Jordan?
Emmers was out. So, he said everybody decided, okay, we got to have a speaker, and so everybody rallied around Mike Johnson at that point.
Because I thought it was going to be Emmers, and then when Emmers dropped out, it was like, okay, what do you do from here? Because the chaos will either as a party have to look at this and say, enough. We need to pick one, give them the votes, and we need to get our stuff together.
Yeah, it was obvious that everybody had enough, and Representative Lawler of New York actually said, he goes, everybody decided, he goes, this became about personalities, not about issues. He said it. He goes, this is personality.
We said from the beginning. Yeah. It's a personality conflict. That's all this was.
And then it became anger at everybody during the process of trying to find another speaker. Yeah. It became more personal from everybody up there.
Right.
I don't know who got everybody together to say it stops now, because that was the question. How long will this continue? I mean, to go on for 3 weeks to begin with was unbelievable. We haven't seen that in American history. And so you're like, okay, what was it? What was it that made them? Was it internal polling? What was it? Or who was it? Or what group of the members of the House said, this stops now? We've got to come to a decision and get this damn thing done. Somebody had to say that. It had to be there, because it changed. Eric, it changed in a matter of hours. It went from pure chaos to, boom, everybody in line.
Right. And they knew that with every passing moment and every failed vote, Emmers saw the writing on the wall. Votes weren't going to be there.
He was out quick.
He was out.
He was like, okay, I'm done. I'm out.
Yep. So then it becomes, all right, we need to understand that it just needs to be somebody that everybody can live with between now and January 25. It's got to be pick one, but it's got to be one, and we got to move on. We got to get these votes and got to get it done. I don't know who whips those votes in a situation like that, when seemingly just hours before, and it really did change in a matter of hours on the day leading up to Emmers drop, during that day, and Emmers dropping out, it was like, okay, then now it's a whole new direction. And I really think it's because And I don't know who saw it, but who convinces the entire group? Listen, every effort of anybody we put in, if we're going to sit here and go down and we're going to split hairs here and we're going to go down this road every single time, we're never going to elect a speaker. We've got to get this behind us.
Well, what I was thinking of, the reason, because it changed within a matter of hours, because even in the final conference vote, it was like, and I'm doing this from memory, so I mean, but it was like Johnson had like 117 votes.
Yeah.
You had, I don't know, what was it, 70 votes or something for Byron Donalds?
Yeah.
And then like 33 for McCarthy still.
Yeah.
As almost a protest vote.
Right. Yeah.
From the McCarthy supporters that were always there.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point I went, okay, nah, they're still not willing to do it.
Right.
They're still not. There's fights going on back and forth. And then, boom, you saw, because remember, when it came out, because I just went, the groan, it was a half groan, half laugh, when it was like, okay, if they can't get Johnson in, well, then we may have a co-speakership with Jordan and McCarthy with a co-speakership. And I'm like, stop it.
Yeah.
Stop this.
Right. Well, in order to do that, you're going to have to get the votes to change the rules. Well, how do you get those? The same way you get a speaker. I mean, it just became ludicrous. But something changed, and they had to come together, I think, as a group, because I think a couple of things could be the fact that Israel's only going to wait for so long for the Biden administration. By the way, there was reports coming across in recent hours. Israeli forces conduct a very brief, large ground incursion into northern Gaza. They're not going to wait for Joe Biden. And we're going to have to be united in being the strong ally of Israel that we should be. And maybe, I don't know, maybe there was some intel coming across, and they said, look, things are going to go down, and we can't afford to be here in this musical chairs situation. We need to get this done and get it behind us.
Yeah, something changed in a matter of hours. Yeah, something
and
changed.
It just happened pretty darn quick.
Be interesting to see if anybody like the Hill or something, anybody who's really close and has their ear to the ground at Capitol Hill,
because
what actually happened.
Because the head count doesn't really change much when you think about it, because their positions, all of their given positions haven't changed. So how does it end up being Mike Johnson?
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. They said that the person of interest in the shooting, the mass shooting in Maine, apparently, as you said, left his car in Lisbon,
right
near a boat dock. And I don't know, I haven't seen in the national stories whether they're saying, well, I guess the assumption is he's on foot or on boat if it was near a boat dock.
Yeah, I guess.
But it's actually outside the town, and that's why everybody is, been ordered to stay inside.
Right. Yeah.
It's got to be
in place for a few towns in that area.
It's got to be pretty fearful, though, if you live in that area and he's on the loose.
Right.
With the gun or whatever he has, whatever armament he has, and being a gun instructor,
right. This is somebody who has the training, and it kind of, if you look at some of the pictures, it was the way he was holding the rifle. It was indicative of somebody who has that kind of training, and of course, then he's armed and dangerous, and maybe especially dangerous as a result of that training and experience, and of course, not being of the right state of mind, as he's already killed. Authorities say over 20 people and injured many others. And now I wonder what we will see in the coming hours, because daylight is still, we're looking at another hour roughly there before we start to see any daylight, which will help them in their search. They can search by air. And then beyond that, if we don't hear anything from authorities, there is a scheduled press conference from local police in Lewiston, Maine at 10:30 Eastern this morning.
Before we get out of here, that Representative Jamel Bowman was charged for the fire alarm stunt, but he did a plea deal.
Yeah,
right. He did a plea deal, so he gets fined, and it's off his record if he stays clean for 3 months. But, Breitbart was the first to report that he actually knocked down the signs.
Yeah.
He knew exactly what he was doing.
Yeah.
He lied when he said, he was just trying to get to the meeting, whatever.
Yeah. He knew what he was doing.
He knew what he was doing.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.